Well, hello everyone. We are now live. I'm Erin with the WRLA and I'll be doing the introductions. Welcome to today's Teachable Tuesday webinar on networking while social distancing. Thank you for everyone for taking time out of your day to attend today. Social distancing is definitely the new normal, and I know Jolene will provide us with a bunch of helpful tools. I quickly do want to remind everyone of a few items. Firstly, thank you to all our members who have engaged in our government relations activities to date. We continue to work on behalf of our members so that if there's issues that are impacting our members' businesses that you would like to bring forward, please reach out to Liz or any of the Government Relations Committee. If you haven't been receiving our COVID memos or advocacy bulletins, please let us know. Secondly, we are right in the middle of membership renewal. So if you haven't paid for your membership or haven't received an emailed invoice, please give me a call or shoot me an email and I will look after that for you. Finally, some of you may or may not be aware, but this year we took all publications in-house. So all 6 of our magazines and our annual directory are done by us. This has been a great transition and has helped us to get to know each of our members a little bit better. So with that being said, if you have any changes to your company, this could include your primary contact or your address, please let us know and we'll update the annual directory so that we have all the correct information. All right, now let's get started. Networking and creating connections while social distancing. What is this webinar about? Do you quickly engage others? Do you avoid online and in-person networking opportunities? Do you have introverted tendencies? Would you like to make the most out of your networking budget to increase your contact spheres and revenue? This webinar will cover the topic of identifying communication styles, refining your elevator pitch, discussing effective online meetings, exploring follow-up etiquette. As quickly mentioned, our presenter today is Jolene Watson. She's the president of Clarity Coaching and Development. Her website is right up there. Jolene Watson is the president of Clarity Coaching and Development, executive business coach, personality expert, and professional speaker across Canada. She is also a facilitator at the Praxis School of Entrepreneurship, Edwards School of Business, and Saskatchewan Polytechnic. She became certified as a Myers-Briggs practitioner through Psychometrics Canada. She graduated with a 99% average. She speaks on a variety of topics and has notable experience in the areas of networking, etiquette, customer service, presentation, and stress management. As mentioned, this WRLA staff is myself, and with me is Jessica. She will be handling the questions and the end of the webinar. Finally, before Jolene takes over, just a couple quick housekeeping items. All attendees are muted, but you should be able to hear us and Jolene. If you want to ask questions, just use the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and type in the questions during the webinar. Myself and Jess will monitor the questions and facilitate them at the end with Jolene. As well, a link to the copy of the webinar recording will be sent out after and posted on our website. All right, Jolene, it is all you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There we go. So I'm going to share my screen. You can see me because there's some body language stuff. So I'll show you some of that through my video. All right. So let's get started. First, thank you so much, Erin and Jess, for doing this for your members and for bringing me on. I was honored to be a speaker at the event last year, and it was one of the best trade shows I've ever been to. So I'm going to give some tips that'll help you if you're going to the trade show as well, because that's also networking. So thank you again. Everyone has the ability to create happiness for others. Some people do it by entering a room. Some people do it by leaving a room, right? Depends on our attitude. We can all be each of those people. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to be approachable. There we go. So a little bit about my background. My biography was read. Just a couple things I'm going to add. I am an executive coach and life coach. Toastmasters is where I got my start in public speaking, and my certification in personality profiling, 2012 was when I got that. And my original career, random fact about me, was in veterinary medicine, and I was a vet tech and a dentist for animals. So that was where I got my start, and I absolutely love my career. I'm from a farm by Bigger, Saskatchewan. That's where my parents grew up. I currently live in Regina and Saskatoon, and then I travel all over Canada. So it's been a fun journey these last 7 years. And this is a famous sign: New York is big, but this is bigger, and that is my hometown. So personality profiling, I speak all over Canada, and then I also offer corporate team building. And as you can see with the topics today, we are going to cover networking skills, which with social distancing is also presentation skills, because now people can see you via video. And the overview was already given before. So again, trade shows, think about sales, think about networking, trade shows, because all of these tips I'm going to give today apply to all of these areas. 85% of jobs are filled through networking. 72% of people say they are impacted by how someone appears and their handshake. And 11% of people on LinkedIn have more than 100 contacts. So I do recommend, if you're not on LinkedIn, it's definitely in Canada really up and coming, and most people are now on it. So I do recommend getting a profile on there. This was my favorite statistic, and not shocking. Nearly 100% of people say face-to-face meetings are essential for long-term business relationships. Face-to-face, in-person, shaking hands. However, with social distancing, Zoom online platforms have become the new norm, and they are working quite well until we can get back to in-person networking. 92% of my clients come from in-person networking. So people say to me, but do you have the skills to teach this? And I'm like, yeah, I've mastered it over the past 7 years. And I also love networking. So I really like to share some tips and tricks on how to be more engaging and how to get those business cards and contacts. Until then, as I mentioned, we can use online platforms, which is what we're doing today. So virtual meetings, you can bring a group of people together using Zoom as a platform. You can also just meet with one client, one-on-one, which is also a really effective way to network. Quick example, this lady was speaking at an event right before COVID-19 hit and everything was shut down. She was a phenomenal speaker, amazing leader. She owns multiple companies and gave incredible examples. I wanted to go for coffee with her to find more out about her. And of course, with COVID, we couldn't, so I just switched it to Zoom. We've met twice on Zoom. I've done her full personality profile, and now I'm going to be working with all of her managers. So again, that was just a simple ask, and it was a Zoom call that got me to get to know her. So I know it's not ideal, and a lot of people don't prefer it, but right now it is working quite well. So we're going to launch a poll, and this is my question for you. What is your most common networking challenge? And I do believe you're only allowed to choose one of those. So please feel free to choose your most common challenge, as I can definitely change as we go through to give you more examples. Not sure how to make small talk is winning so far. Talking too much. And there's about 23% so far that really like networking. Perfect. A couple more seconds and then we'll end the poll and share the results with everyone. There we go. So small talk was number one. So we'll definitely talk about that, and then talking too much. Thank you. I put a few polls in here just to keep the engagement going, because I think it's a really cool way if you're doing a Zoom chat with your clients. The golden rule. Most people know this rule, and it's to treat people the way you want to be treated. I find in networking, in marketing, and in sales, I prefer the platinum rule, which is to treat people the way they want to be treated. So it's like a flip on the golden rule, because people don't want to be treated the way that you do because they're not like you. They have different personalities, different religions, different cultures. So to really wrap our heads around how do we quickly engage others, it's to adapt our communication style to theirs. So Myers-Briggs Of course, the true Myers-Briggs, it's 144 questions and there's a 16-page report. For the sake of time, we have 45 minutes today. I'm going to just brief those 4 areas very quickly, give you some examples and some tips. 88% of Fortune 100 companies use Myers-Briggs to be the most successful in the world. One of the reasons I got certified in this was that. And also it's based on Jungian psychology, and I'm fascinated with Carl Jung. So Catherine and her daughter Isabel basically developed the tool, hence the name Myers-Briggs. 4 different areas, and I'm going to cover these with examples. How we focus our attention and gain energy, extrovert or introvert. How we gather information, sensing or intuition. How we actually make a decision is based on thinking and feeling, and our lifestyle outside of work is judging and perceiving. And some of the screenshots that you're going to say come from the step 2 report. So extroverts and introverts, this does not mean are you outgoing or are you shy? Again, it is how do you gain your energy and how does your brain process information? Extroverts tend to gain their energy around others, people, things. They tend to think out loud and they generally like to talk on the phone or the Zoom chats. They really prefer this during COVID, whereas introverts are more reflective. They gain their energy by being with fewer people or alone, and they do tend to prefer texting or email as opposed to talking. So you're going to see that with your clients as well. This is a screenshot from 2 of my clients. The gentleman up top, as you can see, this is the 16-page report. This is one of the screenshots. He is a 5 out of 5 on all extrovert behaviors. He's very clear in preference on the extrovert side. This lady at the bottom, she's an introvert by nature, but as you can see, she's developed expressive, which is an extrovert behavior over the years because she's had to. So as we age, we absolutely change our behaviors, but our personality type generally does not change in how we gain our energy. This is my favorite extrovert meme. Extroverts, again, sometimes they think out loud, right? Whatever's on their mind sometimes will come out of their mouth. And I'm sure you can think of some clients that you have and customers. How extroverts feel at social events, they really like them, they gain energy. And at the end of the night, they still have energy. Here's some tips if you're an extrovert. Plan to stay late because you're probably going to stay later than you thought. Don't meet too many people because just because you hand out lots of cards, for example, it doesn't mean you've made connections or that they're going to actually want to meet with you again. Be cautious with how many questions you're going to ask an introvert and how deep you go. And I'm going to give you some examples of questions for small talk as we go through. Extroverts can sometimes appear a little overbearing or too excited at times. So they might need to just calm that energy just a little bit and talk less. How introverts feel at social events. They generally don't prefer to be at them, but it's really important to show up. How they feel after social events, their energy is drained. Usually it's about 0% by the end of a large event, especially trade shows. Even extroverts get exhausted at trade shows when it's 3 days. However, introverts, they might just have to take a few breaks throughout the day, even a nap in the middle of the day to really energize themselves because that's how they lose energy. Doesn't mean they're not good at it. They're actually better at listening. How introverts can sometimes feel at social events. And they're like onions, there's layers, right? Opening up to someone they don't know, it might take a lot longer than, say, an extrovert who would just say whatever is on their mind. So I don't know if anyone can relate to this meme, but it's one of my favorites. I'm sure the introverts might be able to relate. So here's some tips if you are an introvert by nature. Plan to leave early and drive yourself. Plan to give out 3 business cards. 3, that's it. If you go to an event, and this is an in-person event, I'm going to give you tips for online as well, but we're allowed to have about 15 people at a gathering now. So if you hand out 3 business cards, that is success. You had good conversations, you can go home. And I think just knowing that you don't have to stay to the end will help you show up to that event. You might need to practice some extroverted behaviors and ask random questions of the extroverts because you might come across as uninterested or aloof just because it does drain your energy a little bit. And again, you're fantastic listeners. So this was a screenshot from a webinar I just attended on giving presentations online, which is in essence networking online. Introverts need time to reflect, send pre-work ahead of time if you can, or something for them to read ahead of time, whereas extroverts really like brainstorming. So this is a team meeting tip. If you're going to facilitate a meeting with your team and maybe they're not in the office or they are, same tip, is extroverts really like brainstorming. They like to just come up with ideas. With Zoom, you can use a whiteboard, you can use the chat room, you can use breakout sessions. There's so many really cool things that you can do to really invigorate your extroverts. Whereas your introverts, if you're gonna throw random questions out during a meeting, let them know a few days ahead of time because their brains process information quite differently and they need more time, at least 24 hours after a discussion, to come up with really brilliant feedback. So that's just some really quick tips. When I do my full day workshops, we really dive into meeting etiquette, but I think this is one of the most important areas to be cognizant of during your team meetings. Oh, go back here. So 65% of Canadians are introverts. Second question for the poll, are you introvert, extrovert, or somewhere in between? And again, you might have behaviors on both sides, but I want you to think by nature, who are you? Usually in our early 20s, we're really solid in our personality type, and as we get older, we start to flex our behaviors so we become more mid-zone. So it looks like we have a tie pretty much between extrovert, introvert on this session. And some people unsure. All right, so 36%, it's a tie between extroverts and introverts. Thank you so much for launching the polls. Second area, sensing and intuition. This one, a really easy way to remember is just how do you gain information before you make a decision? Detail orientation versus big picture. That's a really easy way to remember this area. The sensors like details, they like steps. And I was thinking of some examples because I was at your trade show and you have, of course, hundreds of vendors. So there's so many examples I could give here. Machinery wise, you might be selling something with a motor, right? A sensor is going to say, if it's used, who's owned it, how many hours, how do you fix it? Can you show me how to fix it? I've already done my research and I know what everyone else is charging, so what can you do for me? An intuitive person might say, they're more big picture, right? They think about the future. Here's my budget, just have it delivered by Tuesday. As long as you're within the budget, good enough. I trust you. They usually go based on their intuition or their gut feeling. The caution that I always give with intuitives is they might just sign a contract without signing it because they trust you. Make sure they sign or read the most important pieces of that contract. So in sales, let's say you're selling fencing or window coverings or shingles or siding. A sensor might say, here's the budget, here's the durability, here's the warranty I'm looking for, very detail oriented, versus somebody more big picture might say, you know what, I was at this cottage on the weekend and I want the same feeling in my backyard, right? So they might be looking at the bigger picture, the association, the meaning of what they're looking for. So how we talk when we're selling something, when we're describing something, I usually match the style of the person in front of me. Or better yet, just ask them, do you want the details or do you want the big picture? So here's some screenshots, again, from the Step 2 report. This is my screenshots over the years. I'm very intuitive by nature. So very big picture, abstract, theoretical, more original. Most accountants, for example, are more of the sensing side. My boyfriend's a mechanic, he's a machinist, he's a millwright, he's more of the sensing, right? Because it's very much the details, getting things in order, more realistic, more practical. So again, this is really important to know about your customers, your clients, your coworkers, in how to approach them and also how to teach them new things. There we go. So type implications. Sensors need practical applications, examples, and statistics. Intuitives, they need a framework, the big picture. How is this yard going to look 5 years from now, right? They're more focused on the future than the present. So how do they answer questions? I usually pay close attention to that. the neuron structure of the brain is quite different between these two personality types. The intuitives, big picture, it's more like a spider web of neuron connections. So they can jump all over the map with steps and still come back to the beginning, maybe the future. Whereas sensors, it's linear firing neurons side by side, which means standard operating procedures, step by step, works very well for this type. So 61 versus 39%. And we're not going to launch a poll for this one, but I want you to ponder who you are and who you work with as well. Thinking and feeling. This one is how you actually make a decision. There's some key words. So thinkers use logic. They like to critique and analyze, and they're often brilliant with strategy. Feelers, often, HR is really attractive to feelers because they're really good about the people side of things, the personal side, the praising, the understanding side. So as you can see, 2017 to 2019, I'm a feeler, absolutely. Works really well with my coaching. However, I only hire thinkers as my mentors and my coaches because I really want that different perspective. So something to consider if you're going to hire a mentor or a coach is to hire someone your opposite type. And as you can see, as I get older, I'm becoming less compassionate and less tender because I'm practicing more of these thinking behaviors, which has served me very well in business. This is my friend here at the bottom. He's in construction. As you can see, he scored a 0 out of 5 on empathy. He's very logical, reasonable, questioning, critical, and tough. Now, that can serve him very well, sort of, in the business side. However, he lost quite a few employees over the years. And I had asked him once, well, do you appreciate your employees? Do you tell them how great they are and give examples? And I remember he looked at me and he goes, I pay them. Right? Isn't that enough? So I think what I generally do is work with my thinkers on their empathy and my feelers on being more assertive. So here's some more tips here. Logical versus connection. So how you present something to these two types is going to be a little bit different. With the thinkers, allow time for debate. 51 versus 49, I find no difference in gender, but I do find a difference in professions chosen by these two different areas. So be truthful or be tactful or do both, but be very careful. And this is my favorite acronym. If you remember anything from today, this is the best. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And before you post anything on social media, ask yourself those same 5 questions, especially during COVID-19. So logic versus values. And third question, where do you fall between thinking and feeling? And again, you probably have behaviors on both sides because you've had to develop them over the years. So about 48% thinking. Oh, there we go. 35, 48, and then some unsure. And of course, I'm just briefing this today, so you won't know your full personality type just by a few slides. Last area. This is basically how you view the world, your lifestyle. Oop, going back. It won't let me use a clicker, so I have to use my mouse to progress the slides. One fault with Zoom that I've found. So J's really like to make a plan. They like deadlines, and they're almost always on time, if not early. They'll often make lists. They like to know what's coming. So being a planned person brings them energy, whereas your perceivers, super spontaneous by nature, those are the people running through the airport generally that'll say, I'll buy it when I get there. Who needs to show up 2 hours ahead of time, right? They're just more spontaneous by nature. With your clients, your perceivers are the ones that are just going to walk in last minute and need something quite substantial, whereas the J's might call ahead and say, can I come on Friday? Can you have everything ready? Do you need more time? So you're going to notice this with your customers and clients quite often. And if you said to a J, let's book a meeting, and they pulled out their phone and said, how about Tuesday at 2? Probably, right, they're planful by nature. Whereas if you say, we should book a meeting and talk further about this, and they say, yeah, sure, sometime. Make sure it's you that makes that follow-up call and gives that reminder call as well. So this just shows 2012 to 2019. These are screenshots from my report. I have flexed my perceiving behaviors quite substantially on purpose in order to survive entrepreneurship, because you cannot be planful, systematical, organized. It's you just, whatever comes, it's a little bit of chaos, but once you can truly live in both worlds, entrepreneurship is definitely the most rewarding thing in the world. So as you can see, you can change your behavior. So that's the one thing I want you to remember as well, besides the THINK acronym. You can't change your personality type, but you can always change your behaviors. So self-assessment, kind of think of where you fall between these two. And out of those 4 areas, because there's 2 sides, there's 16 different personality types in Myers-Briggs. So that's where that comes from. I'm an ENFJ. So as you can see, I'm 2.9% of Canada. So these are statistics out of Psychometrics Canada. So just in case you know your type, maybe you've already done it before through a corporation or a previous job, then you can see how rare you actually are. And I do career counseling as well, so it's quite fascinating to see what careers certain personality types are drawn to. 4th question, how many seconds do you have to make a positive first impression at a social or networking event? So how quickly do you think people can judge? And remember, at a networking event, so you might have a little more time. So 3 to 5 seconds is winning so far. Only 3 people have guessed 90 seconds. All right, so 3 to 5 seconds was the winner on the guess, 5 to 10 next. So it basically went in order. So the answer is about 20 seconds. So 15 to 20 seconds you have to make an impression. And the reason that number is so high is because people are actually at that event, online or in person, to get to know you or to listen to the speaker. So they want your business card. They want to connect with you. So you have a lot more leadway. Grocery store, we'll use that as an example. That's not a networking event. If you tried to strike up a conversation with someone, 3 to 5 seconds. People judge very quickly. And this is the last question I'm going to pull. If you go to an event and they give you a sticker to put your name on, would you put it on your right side or your left side? And what side do you think you should put it on? Now, I'm going to say if you have your own name tag that has a magnet, please use that instead, because it looks so much more professional than having a sticker, because they generally fall off. And you can get those for about $20. So that's a huge networking tip, is just get a name tag with your logo on it. But if you didn't bring one and you have to have the sticker. So everyone, 80% of you guessed left side and 20% guessed right. Now, as long as you have it on, that's fine. But I always say, if you want people to remember your name, always have it on your right-hand side. And the reason I say that, and this is for in-person networking, of course, if I shake your hand, I'm right-handed, you're right-handed, most adults are right-handed. I'm going to look directly at your right-hand side every single time. So if that's where your name tag is, it's going to help me remember your name, because you will say your name when we shake hands, but then I get to see it on your name tag. And if you're both left-handed, of course, this rule would not apply, but most people are right-handed, so right-hand side. So next time you go out, remember that one. What are the first 3 things people judge? Now, we're not going to do a poll for this one, but I want you to think, what do you judge very quickly when you see someone new, and what do you think people judge about you? There's about 10 things. I'm just going to give you 3 of them. Income level, intellect level. So how smart are you? How much money do you make? And could I trust you to be my friend? Those are 3 things within 3 to 5 seconds that people will judge about us. How do we mitigate that? Well, income level, obviously, you can't change your income level before you walk into an event, but you can look different. Your body posture, having your shoulders back, having the palms of your hands showing, I'm going to talk about that in a moment. And how you walk, right? Walk with purpose. People notice those things. And I have this later in the PowerPoint, but I'll show it to you now, is I bring a steamer with me to every trade show, to every event, every time I travel, so that my clothes are always wrinkle free and look super professional. So intellect level, obviously know your stuff, right? That's an easy one. And could you be their friend? So trustworthy. People want you to be confident, credible, and competent. So body language, I mentioned the showing of the hands, that shows that you're trustworthy. If you hide your hands, I'm just going to back up here and actually cross your arms, people might think you're unapproachable. If you put your hands behind your back, they might think you're hiding something. News anchors do it all the time. You'll see they show their hands. It's a psychology trick, really, is that it's more trustworthy if you do that. Crutch words, again, if you say so, like, it can be very distracting when you're trying to make a positive first impression. So just catch yourself, get people around you to catch you when you say those things so you can change that. Trade shows. Again, the steamer's right here. This steamer, I just got it at a trade show, but you can get them online or in store. They actually have different pieces that you can put on for cat hair, dog hair. This one actually works as an iron, this one with the metal here. So these I keep, again, in my car. I take them when I travel, definitely for trade shows, so that I always look professional. Smiling, it emits neurochemicals, serotonin, dopamine. To truly smile means that you're going to have wrinkles, you're going to have crow's feet in your eyes, and people can see that from across the room if you're actually genuinely smiling, and they will come straight to you at your booth. Let's say it's the WRLA. They will want to talk to you because you look approachable. So some people have that resting face that does not look approachable. Just be cognizant, if you have one of those faces, to smile more often so that people don't get the wrong impression about approaching you. Eye contact. I do teach a presentation skills course. It's about an 8-hour course, and the networking session is 2 hours. So I wanted to give you as many tips as I could today. So I blended the two courses. Eye contact, 3 to 5 seconds. And of course, depends on the culture. Every culture is a little bit different, but in general, 3 to 5 seconds, look away and then look back at the person. And if you're giving a presentation, make sure you span the room so that everyone feels included. Elevator pitch. So this one, most people have an elevator pitch, maybe 2 or 3, depending on your different products, your different services. As I go through the workshop, this is a bit of a process, this one, but I'm going to give you the main tip on your elevator pitch. Don't just say, this is where I work and this is my name. Because people, not that they don't care, but they want to know how you help your clients. So I think the perfect elevator pitch is talking about how your clients change or transform as a result of the service or product that you provide. What is it that they get out of what you do for them? That's what other people want to know so that they can give you referrals and actually understand the depth of how you help people. So for an example, if I said, hi, I'm Jolene Watson. I'm a Myers-Briggs practitioner. Some of you might go, that's nice. I don't even know what that is, right? And that's how I used to introduce myself before I started learning more about networking etiquette. If I said this instead, listen to the difference. Hi, I'm Jolene Watson. I help my clients overcome fears around networking and public speaking. Much better. It actually shows what I do, and you might even be able to think of someone that could use my services. So again, having your pitch be about how you help, how your clients transform. Are you decreasing their stress? What do you do for them? Start that as your elevator pitch. Then you can go into the company you work for, the role that you have, your experience, the product details. So remember what the elevator pitch, all an elevator pitch is something that's supposed to be intriguing enough to get that person to ask you a question. That's it. And again, there's a whole process here, and feel free, because this is only 45 minutes, to send me an email too if you have more questions regarding your elevator pitch. An idea for your team. And again, some of you are essential workers. A lot of you are. So you're going to have clients coming in, maybe with the social distancing. Some of you might be working from home. An idea for your team is to bring everyone together and work on a succinct elevator pitch that everybody agrees is enticing, it's intriguing, it explains what we do, And then afterwards, each person is going to have a different description of their role within that company. So this is such a great idea for practicing. So provide value. People want to be known, valued, understood, treated with respect, make it as easy as possible, and value their time. And this goes for marriage too, right? This isn't just customer service. I think everybody wants all 6 of those things. So I wanted to really, I'm just going to brief this, but I wanted to give you some examples for small talk. Treat everyone like they are the most important person you'll meet that day. So I came up with this acronym based on my veterinary background. I actually designed a cat hospital once in Saskatchewan, which was the only one to exist. So I really like cats. So you'll remember me as the speaker and you'll be like, what was that acronym again? Oh yes, CATS. Career, achievement, travel, success. Those are 4 different areas that you can pull questions from. And I'll give you some examples. What led you into this career? You could ask anyone that question, and it's better than what do you do, right? Because you want to know about the path of how they got there. Did you always work in this industry, or did you do something before? And how did you get here? What's the most rewarding part of what you do? What do you like the best? What insights or positive lessons have you learned over the years? I generally keep my questions on the positive side, because walking in and saying, how about COVID, right? You don't want to start with a negative tone. So I generally ask more upbeat questions. Achievement. How have your strengths helped you to get where you are today? What are your success habits? Logic versus values. You'll often be able to sense if that person's a feeler or a thinker by the way they answer those questions. This is my favorite question. What is the one thing you feel supremely qualified to teach other people? That is a powerful and deep question. I've asked that of a lot of people, and some people have actually changed their careers after they truly figured out that question. 20 years ago, when I was a vet tech, I remember begging for business cards from my boss so that I could network. And I remember them saying, we don't network in this industry. And I quit that job. And that was when I was actually 19. So way back then, I saw the value in connecting with others. Hence, creating connections is my tagline. And travel. If you could travel anywhere, where would you go? What do you do for fun? Right? What sports or hobbies did you or do you or want to get back into? There's different ways to word that. What's your favorite kind of music? That's a really simple question. I asked that of a lawyer once, and he laughed and he said, well, I'm a 90s rap DJ in my spare time. Did you not know that? You can find out fascinating things about people by just asking more intriguing questions. And finally, success. And I want you to think about your answer for this. If you could meet someone famous, anyone in the world, who would it be? If you could sit down with them for 20 minutes and ask any questions you want, I want you to start thinking about who that would be. What would your dream job or career be if you had no limitations? What do you think of when you first think of success? Often my questions will help me understand what their personality type is as well, which can help on the customer service side. So be curious, practice conversation starters. You can also buy table topics. I have some here. You can get these online, you can get them in stores where they have just random questions. And this is really good for practicing, kind of being put on the spot and how to answer more intriguing questions and different questions that you might want to ask as well. I have about 50 questions in my 2-hour workshop, but again, table topics are a great way. And pets, you can absolutely, if you're doing Zoom meetings and your pet happens to be in the room, feel free to put it in the view of everyone, because animals decrease our stress levels, they lower our blood pressure, they lower our heart rates. It's really good, especially during COVID-19, where people are a little bit more stressed than they normally would be. So feel free to bring pets into the screens. Business cards. If you want, you do not have to do this, and I know not everyone's comfortable with this. If you put your picture on your business card, people are 60% more likely to keep it in Canada. I don't know if it's that people don't want to throw your face in the garbage. I'm not sure why that is, But people also remember your name if they can put your face and associate the two. So if you have that opportunity, I would recommend doing that. The font, make sure it's readable, make sure everything's spelled perfectly, the quality. With my business cards, you won't be able to see them. Obviously, I have a picture of it, but they're actually really thick and they have rounded corners and they're soft touch laminate, right? So they're really soft and people do notice those things and they think you're super professional and successful. And it does, I think my cards cost me 20 cents a card. Like it's not a whole lot more to make them just a little bit better. Bring them with you. A lot of people forget their cards. I keep them in my vehicle at all times in Ziploc bags in the trunk, just in case it snows or they get wet. Reading someone's card. If someone gives you their card, take the time, especially if they are an entrepreneur, to read it, to flip it over, to check out the logo, to compliment them if you truly like their card, because they usually spend a lot of time making those. I had a gentleman once at a networking event take a picture of us and then send it to me with his contact. Now, he was an extrovert, I'm an extrovert, kind of unique. I wouldn't always recommend doing that with an introvert. Maybe someone you don't know, they might not like that at all. So just be cautious with that one. So here's business cards. I teach time management as well. And one thing that I learned that I've used a lot is that people really like the number 3. 3 things, 3 points per email. It's more humorous, it's more attractive to us. It's more productive. So I have more than 3 services and I have more than 3 key topics, but I try to make all of my propaganda that I'm sending out there in 3s because it's just easier for people to digest. And whatever contact your preference is, that's what you should put on the front of that card. And brochures. I brought my old brochures just to show you. This used to be my brochure. It was super wordy. It was like a book. And my web designer at the time, she said, I don't recommend that. And so my second one was 2 sides, right, to the point. And then I learned about the number 3. So my new brochures are more clean, more crisp, high quality, 3, and then any of the awards that you've gotten for your company. It's always good to put those on as well. So just some key tips. Simple is better. You want them to go to your website. LinkedIn. I mentioned before, you probably want to be on LinkedIn. Make sure it is a professional photo. You can get your clients to give you testimonies on there and they're saved forever in your profile. So people do look at those. So that is a really great place to ask for a testimony or recommendation, they call it on LinkedIn. There is something called Find Nearby. Now, if we were in person, because I usually do these in person, I would show you with the Apple phone versus an Android. But if you just Google, how do you find Nearby? It's really simple. If you press the 2 little heads and then it just says Find Nearby and you click it on, what that does, if I'm in a room with 30 people, 300 people, anyone else that has clicked that function on will show up immediately on my LinkedIn feed. So at that point, I can easily add them very quickly or send them a message. You know, I saw you in the room. I wasn't able to connect with you. Would you mind going for coffee? So again, LinkedIn is a great feature for on your phone or on the desktop, of course. Follow-up, touch points. We want to provide as much value as we possibly can. So here's a rule you can follow. 24 hours. If you meet someone within 24 hours, email them and say, it was great to meet you, so they don't forget about you. 7 days, add them on LinkedIn within 7 days. Not Facebook. LinkedIn is meant for business. But you might like their Facebook page, but do not add them as a Facebook friend. A lot of people do not prefer that. Within 30 days, ask that person for an in-person meeting or an online Zoom, whatever platform you use, but a face-to-face meeting so you can actually read their body language. This is a great rule, all 3 of these numbers for sure, but I have my own, and that is, even if it's been 3 months and you got busy and you have that card, still contact them and just say, hey, I met you at this particular event. Here's what we talked about. Would you like to meet up? I have never been offended, even a year later, if somebody reaches out to me and said, hey, I had your business card. Sorry, I haven't reached out. So don't feel guilty if you can't follow this all the time. And I wanted to end with goal setting. And I know a lot of people think it's arts and crafts for adults, but I teach vision boarding or goal setting workshops. And the reason for that is 70% of adults remember in pictures. So if you know your ultimate goal that, networking, building contacts, building your sales is going to get you there, it's really important because it's going to get you in that solution oriented mindset, or law of attraction, right? It's worded both ways. So think about what your ultimate goal is. Think about that person that you wanted to meet or go for coffee with, or a beach. It might be somewhere you want to go. It might be a car, a motorbike, whatever it is that your ultimate goal is, and put a picture of it, because it is amazing the motivation that you will get from that. And tell people you work with what your ultimate goals are, personally and professionally, so that you have people to hold you accountable and also to help you reach those goals. Tony Robbins, my favorite speaker in the world. I've been listening to his tapes and CDs, not to date myself, for about 18 years. And my goal was to meet him and network with him and give him a business card. And it wasn't until last year that I had 5 friends call me and say, he's coming to Edmonton. He rarely comes to Canada. And I was told when I got this photo, I had to pay extra, that I was not allowed to give him a business card. You couldn't bring anything. So I hid a business card up my sleeve, and I absolutely networked with Tony Robbins. And he's 6'7", by the way, as you can see from this picture. And this is another client. He put a Harley on his vision board, and he also wanted to become the CEO of a rather large company. And he just sent me this picture the other day. He's gotten both. So again, having that picture to remind you what you're doing. Sometimes it's 16-hour days, but if you know your ultimate purpose, it helps get through that. So final tip, be the speaker. It's easy to network with an entire room if you're behind the microphone. Upcoming courses. And this is a picture of my farm, Bigger, Saskatchewan. I was just there on the weekend. Stress management. These ones, I don't offer public courses at this time because it's so particular to a company. So I teach these online or in person for any company that wants me to do that. So communication styles, personality profiling, all of my courses are available via online platforms or in person, as long as we can respect social distancing. And I do travel all over Canada, which is my favorite part of my career. Virtual presentation skills for anybody that really wants to learn more about how to be effective behind a microphone, how to be engaging. That course, the public one, is coming up, and I also offer that privately, one-on-one or for groups. And the full 2-hour version of this course is going to be happening on Wednesday, June 17th. And I'm going to do breakout rooms, so you actually get to practice networking with a whole bunch of different people during that session. Don't forget the THINK acronym, the platinum rule: treat people the way they want to be treated, and just show up. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jess and Erin to see if there's any questions.
Oh, thanks so much, Julian. That was really interesting. And we do have a few questions, and I'm laughing because the first one, I don't want to start with a negative, because you recommended not starting with the negative. But you are an extroverted person, and with COVID-19, how are you coping, what kind of tips can you give, again, extroverts and introverts, while we try and deal with this new reality in terms of socializing and networking?
Absolutely. So it's important to understand, and we couldn't get into it today in 45 minutes, that under extreme stress, which a lot of people are facing right now, we actually flip our personality type. So extroverts might become very introverted and shut the world off and not want to connect. Feelers might become more critical. Thinkers might become emotional. So we actually flip our type. So it's important to talk to the people around us and let them know of these triggers, how to help us through those. With extroverts, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls. With introverts, they're doing better because they get to be alone, right? But if they have children at home and all of a sudden they're homeschooling and they don't have any time by themselves, it can be extremely stressful. So don't feel guilty if you need to go for a car ride or just to get away for a few hours by yourself, and really help those around you respect what you need at this time. And for me, it's a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of phone calls, a lot of connecting has kept me going.
Yeah. Well, and I think I really appreciate that you brought up some of the stuff around the WRLA buying show, because that's actually one of the questions was, how do you know, especially in those situations where you only have a few seconds to make an impression, how do you know it's okay to approach others in a networking situation? Like, for example, the trade show, like what kind of body language are members perhaps looking for to engage with each other?
Absolutely. And I already mentioned the smiling and the showing the palms of your hands. But the other really cool tip is if you're talking to someone, say you were at the trade show and you have someone talking to you, instead of squaring your shoulders and feet with them, have one shoulder out and still be looking at the person and one foot facing out, because that shows anyone in that room subconsciously that they're allowed to break into that conversation. But if it's a client or a future customer that you're really engaged with, shut that body language off and square your shoulders, because then other people will subconsciously know not to approach. So as if you're in the trade show, if you're at your booth, being cognizant of your own body language will allow or repel other people depending on how deep that conversation
Oh,
is.
that's
Yeah.
interesting. And what about for some of our members who own retail storefronts? Would that same sort of apply with perhaps customers that are in the store that they want to approach, to talk to engage with?
Yes. And of course, there are some stores, and this sounds crazy, but I've heard about it, have different colors of baskets, because some
Oh,
people want people to approach them and ask questions. Other people just want to look on their own at first. So that's like one strategy, but also to watch the body language. If somebody's avoiding eye contact or looking down, maybe let them, explore the store for a while before approaching. And smiling, I think, is one of the most important things. And I've heard of people saying they went into stores and someone was on their cell phone or not smiling and they've left that store. So these things, people judge us very quickly. So the body language, smiling, being welcoming, and not too intruding.
oh, that's a great tip. So I think this is more of a question from me, but I consider myself fairly outgoing, but I do get nervous when walking into a room full of strangers or even a room full of my members that I've never met before. How do we get tips on how not to be nervous when we're meeting a group of total strangers?
Definitely. And everyone gets nervous, even extroverts, right? Just because they like to talk doesn't mean they don't get nervous or have social anxiety. What
Mhm.
I do when I walk into a room is I watch for the people that are smiling. I really do. And I watch that body language. If somebody has their shoulder out or their foot out, I go to those people first because they're showing me subconsciously they want me to join their group. If you're an introvert, this was a tip from another introvert, because I'm not one, is she said she just looks for someone that looks more awkward than her or more nervous, and then she approaches them first, and then they start a conversation, and then they both feel better about coming
That's a great tip.
to the middle of the room, right? I'm like, that's
Yes.
a great tip.
Like-minded people grouped together.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and here's a random tip too. I love psychology and studying this. Anchoring, it's called. But if you listen to a CD or a playlist that you've made as you drive to that event, it triggers that emotional response and it changes your physiological state. If it's a song that really reminds you of the past or reminds you of good times, it'll actually put you in a better mood and you'll be less nervous when you walk into that room. So
Mhm.
little things, moving your body, Tony Robbins, of course, if you've ever been to one of his sessions, he gets people to jump up and down a lot just to really get your body going. But I think the music is just the easiest thing that everyone can easily do.
Well, that's really interesting. So like with social distancing happening now too, many of our members, they used to have a regular schedule of seeing people and going to them. How do you recommend they keep, is it like, what's an appropriate way to keep in contact with people? Maybe they would have normally stopped into a store or, a customer may have regularly showed up. How do we check in on each other in a respectful and professional way?
Absolutely. One tip that I always give during my full day sessions is once you get to know your customers and clients, you'll have your favorites, you'll have the regulars, is ask them at some point, do you want me to call you, text you, or email you? What's your preference? Because if you start to have those lists, especially now, you know that you can call Bob, but Joan really likes it if you text her. So these are questions to ask prior. But if you don't know, just make that phone call and then just say, is it okay if I keep in touch with you? Normally I get to see you on a continual basis. The extroverts will often really like a Zoom call because again, then they can see you and it's just so much more exciting for extroverts to do that. And there is something called Zoom fatigue. So you don't want to spend all day on online platforms, but I think it's just good to reach out to your clients to see how they're doing or your suppliers, right? That is an
Yes.
easy thing to do during this time is just reaching out to see how you're doing. I'd like to just book a conversation when works best.
No, that's a really great tip about keeping track of how people like to be kept in contact with. I know it's sometimes everyone likes to just streamline it and keep it in one methodology. I do have one more question, and it goes back to a little bit about personality types. And you had mentioned you would track to yourself about, over time. So are you seeing personality types change with age? Is that kind of the messaging I got there?
So it's my favorite quote in the world is, you can't change your personality type, but you can always change your behaviors. And what I notice, it's called type development, and it's a whole other psychology of personality type, is that as we get older, we mature and we really start to value those areas of our personality type that we've avoided. So we will start practicing those behaviors. And when you do that, you create neuron connections in your brain, and they become habits, and it becomes easier. So you will sometimes have a hard time guessing someone who's really mature, because they can easily flex depending on the situation. But by nature, our personality type doesn't change. So an example, I'm an extrovert. I used to be a full-on extrovert, and I'm becoming more introverted in some of my behaviors as I age, because I see value in that and I start to appreciate it more. But I would still be an extrovert. Does that answer your question?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's really interesting, especially when you've got many of our members have younger employees and older employees and mixed of generational things that they can sort of expect to see some of these characteristics change as they move along in their career development too.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot more calm as I've aged. Not much bothers me anymore, and I think that's just been a lot of practice, right?
Well, that's great. Well, I'm just checking the feed here. I don't think we have any more questions that come up. If anybody does, they can throw them on the chat there. I just want to thank you so much, Jolene, for your time. This has been really interesting. And just to remind everybody, it is being recorded. We will send out the link. We'll also be sending out information on our next webinar, which is on June 23rd. And we just want to thank you so much again for coming by.
Thank you so much for spending the morning with me.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for showing up. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.